ලංකාවේ පිළිගත් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලවල ඉගෙනුම ලබමින් සිටින සරසවි ශිෂ්‍යයන්ගේ පූර්ණ මාර්ගෝපදේශනය යටතේ ඉන්ඩිවිජුවල් හෝ ගෲප් ක්ලාස් එකක් ඔබත් කරගන්න කැමතිද? එක ශ්‍රේණිය සිට 13 ශ්‍රේණිය දක්වා ඕනෑම විෂයක් ඉංග්‍රීසි, සිංහල, දෙමළ ඕනෑම මාධ්‍යකින් ඔබේ හැකියා දක්ෂතා දුර්වලතා හොඳින් හඳුනාගෙන ඔබටම ගැලපෙන සුවිශේෂී ක්‍රමවේද ඔස්සේ ආසාවෙන් ඉගෙන ගන්න. දැන්ම අපිට කතා කරන්න 076 හැන්දෑවේ ඉස්කෝලේ හේන පෙන්වන්න නෙවෙයි පාර පෙන්වන්න.
Hello everyone, hope you all are doing well. Today we are going to start a new lesson in grade 7 mathematics syllabus. It is angles. Before going to the lesson, I would like to introduce you all about a little bit about myself as the instructor of this class. I am Dewni and I have completed my bachelor's degree in agricultural sciences and management from Sabaragama University of Sri Lanka, and I completed my A-levels in 2018 and in biological stream, and I followed English medium during my ordinary levels. Currently, I have 2 years of teaching experience in mathematics and science for English medium ordinary level students. Before we go into the lesson, let's see what are the outcomes that you can gain by learning this lesson. The angles lesson is focused to identify the dynamic or static nature of an angle, and also you will be able to name the angles after you follow this lesson, and you will be able to measure and draw angles using the protractor, and also at the end of the lesson you will be gain the knowledge to classify angles based on their magnitude. Before going to today's lesson, let's refresh your memory from the last year. That means from grade 6, you may learn some types of angles. There are about 6 types of angles. So, can you recall your memory about the types of angles? These are the various types of angles. The first one, it is a right angle. You can see the magnitude of the angle is 90 degrees. Let me show you. Here you can see the right angle in here. It is 90 degrees. So we call this as a right angle. Here, this is an acute angle because the magnitude of the angle is less than 90 degrees. So we call it as an acute angle. This is a little bit different than this. You can see here, the magnitude is greater than 90 degrees. That means it is larger than a right angle. So it is greater than 90 degrees, but less than 180 degrees. You all know that the straight angle, it is the magnitude is 180 degrees. So this angle is less than 180 and greater than 90 degrees. So such an angle we called as obtuse angle. This is a straight angle. It has a magnitude of 180 degrees in its magnitude. See here, it is different than all the others. It has a higher magnitude. No, it is larger than 180 also. So we call such angles, that means greater than 180 and less than 360, those angles are called as reflex angles. This is we called as full revolution. That means it has a higher magnitude. That means the magnitude around this point, it is 380 degrees. So we call it as full revolution. These are the 6 angles. Let me remind you again. Right angle, acute angle, obtuse angle, straight angle, reflex angle, and a full revolution. So you may get a great knowledge from about these angles during your last year, during grade 6. So let's move on to the lesson today. Um, Here we are going to talk about the dynamic or static nature of an angle. What is the static nature? What is the meaning of the static? Static means, that means it is not changing. It is somewhat stable one. The meaning of the static is stable and not changing. The static word gives the idea about stable. So, what is the static nature of angles? Let's see. You can see here. Think about a book, your book, one of your book. Okay. The angle in the book, the corner of this book, the angle between the edges of a cover of a book. This indicates a right angle. When we use the book and when we writing in the book, does this angle change? It does not change, no? So that means this angle does not change with time. When we use in the book, the angle does not change. That means these are static nature of angles. This book has a static nature angle with the static nature. Another example is the angle between the two parts of the roof. You may have seen the angle of the roof. That means the roof. There is an angle between the roof like this. And here this angle also does not change with time. During we living in our home, the angle does not change. No, so this is also an angle with static nature. Another one. This is a wheel. You can see here the angles between the adjacent spokes. These are called as spokes. You may know the spoke of a wheel. These spokes, the angle between two spokes, two adjacent spokes are normally not changed. Think the wheel in a bicycle. When we are riding the bicycle, does this angle changes? It does not change, no. So the angle in this between these two spokes are not changing. So this is also an angle with the static nature. When a magnitude of an angle does not change, we call it as a static in nature. That means when there is an angle, normally it does not change with time, or when we're doing something with it, when the angle is not changing and it stays in stable form, we call them as angles with the static nature. Okay. The next one is dynamic nature of angles. You can see here a clock. There are two hands in a clock which indicates us the time. Those are hour hand and minute hand. When the clock indicates its time using these two hands, there is an angle which creates between these two hands. You can see when the time is 12 past 10, there is the angle between this hour and hand and the minute hand. But when the time goes and the position of this hour hand and minute hand changes, the angles also changes between the two hands. That means with the change in time, the magnitude of the angle also changes. So it is somewhat different than the angles we talked earlier. So what is the meaning of dynamic? Dynamic means changing. The word dynamic gives us an idea about something changes with time, or when we use it, it is changing. The dynamic word gives the idea of a changing, which is not stable. See this in this clock also, the angle of between two hands are changes with the time. When the time of the clock changes, the magnitude of the angle changes. Another example, you may see there is an angle between the two blades of the scissor. Here, between the two blades, there is an angle. When we use the scissor, this angle becomes large, and also when the two blades are getting closer, the angle become also smaller. That means this angle changes with the time. When the two blades are get closer, the magnitude of the angle is small, and when the blades of the scissor are somewhat apart, the magnitude also increases. This is also an angle with a dynamic nature. The next one, you can see here, the angle between the frame of the door and the upper edge of the door. When we are closing and when we are opening the door, this angle changes. When there is no magnitude when it is closed, and when we are opening the door, this magnitude become larger. So this also has a dynamic nature of angles. Here it says, when magnitude of an angle changes, it is called as dynamic in nature. That means the angles which changes with the time, or when we are doing something, if the magnitude of that angle is changed, we call them as the angles with the dynamic nature. Earlier we learned static nature. This is dynamic nature. In static nature, the magnitude of the angle does change. In any occasion, the magnitude does not change. Okay. But in the dynamic nature, time by time and when we are using it, the magnitude of the angle changes. So we call them as angles with dynamic nature. I think you may got a clear idea about what is the static nature and what is the dynamic nature of angles, and examples for the static nature of angles, and also examples for the dynamic nature of angles. These static and dynamic means two opposite things. Static means it is stable. The magnitude of the angles does not change. It is stable. So we call them as static nature. In dynamic nature, the magnitude of the angles changes. Keep in mind about the example for a dynamic nature as the angle between the hour hand and the minute hand of the clock. It is easy because when the time passes and the time changes, the position of two hands are changed and the magnitude also changes. That means the magnitude between the hour hand and the minute hand should be dynamic. When we summarize, static nature of angles means the static word we use for the stable ones. That means they do not change. When the magnitude of an angle does not change, we call them as static nature of angles. And when the magnitude of the angles changes, we call those angles as angles with a dynamic nature. I hope you will gain a clear knowledge about the static and dynamic nature of the angles. This is an example to get a more clear idea. In the first picture, between the hour hand and the minute hand, there is an acute angle. You can see it is showed the time as 5 past. So, between the hour hand and the minute hand, the angle is acute angle. But when the time is 3 o'clock, you can see a right angle between the hour hand and the minute hand. So, the acute angle has changed into a right angle here. In the same clock, okay? In the same clock, between the same hour hand and the minute hand, there is an acute angle and there is a right angle. In the third one, there is an obtuse angle. When the time is 4 o'clock, the magnitude shows an obtuse angle. In the last one, there is this, it shows 6 o'clock. What is the angle? It is a straight angle, no? Then you can see the varying of how it changes the angles in the same clock between the hour hand and the minute hand. When the time changes, the angle also changes. We call this as dynamic nature in angles. This is an example for dynamic nature of angles. You can easily keep in mind as an example for the dynamic nature, the way of angle situated between the hour hand and the minute hand of a clock. Let's move into the next subtopic, naming angles. We are going then. Here we first identify what are the angles. We refresh our mind what are the types of angles, and then we identified what are the dynamic angles and what are the static angles. So now we are going to name the angles. We are going to learn how we name the angles. We can name those angles as using English letters. We can name to identify that those angles. We can name separate angles with separate names. Let's see how we are going to do that. Normally, when we see this picture, you can clearly identify that there are two line segments as AB straight line and BC straight line. Here AB straight line. At the two ends of this line, there is two letters A and B. So we call this straight line as AB line. And this, there are B and C letters. So we called it as BC line. When these two lines meet at B point, it makes an angle. AB and BC meets together at B point and form this angle. When the two lines are get together, it forms two types of angles. You can see here, there is a acute angle and in this side, there is a reflex angle also, no? This angle is less than 90 degrees. So, we call this as an acute angle. And this is greater than 180 degrees. So, we called it as reflex angle. So, when two lines are meet at P point at one, there's one line and there's another line. Those are meet. When this in a one point, AB line and BC line meets at the P point and forms angles, two angles. They form two angles. You can see here an acute angle and here a reflex angle. Then how we name this? You should know how to name the angles. Here we are going to learn to name them. So normally we use these English letters which we use to name these line segments to name an angle. Here we use this symbol to represent an angle. When we name in an angle, we can start from this side or from this side. Then we use this A, B, C. We can name this angle as A, B, C angle, or we can use as B, C, B, A angle. The both ways are okay. The both ways are correct. A, B, C angle or C, B, A angle. We can use these both ways. You can see here, angles are named as ABC or CBA angle. This symbol is used to the point which is at the middle. Okay. ABC angle. It is very simple. You can identify ABC or CBA angle. We can easily name the angles using these English letters. Okay, when we here, when these two lines are get together and meets at B and forms a N. So we can identify these and name these lines and the points with different names. Okay. The two straight line segments, that means AB and BC, are named as arms of the angle. Okay, that means this was not an angle before. These were only two lines. There were two lines. See here, they were only two lines earlier. When only they are get together and meets at B point, they made an angle. So we call these two lines as arms of the angle because the angle is formed between here or the acute angle is formed here or a reflex angle is formed here. So we call these AB and BC as arms of the angle and the point B. That means the AB and BC meets to make the angle. That point we called as vertex. The two arms, these are the two straight lines, are called as arms of the angle And this point, the straight lines are meeting point, is called as vertex. You should keep in mind the names, vertex and arms of the angle, and you should be able to identify what is a vertex and what are the arms of an angle when you see an angle. Okay. Normally we name the vertex as the meeting point of two straight lines to form an angle, and the two straight lines which used to make the angle is called as arms of the angle. This is a summary. The angles are named as ABC angle or CBA angle. See here, ABC or CBA. Normally, the vertex is used at the middle and the symbol is put above the vertex, the letter which indicates the vertex. We put this symbol above the letter, that symbol that indicates the vertex. See here, A, B, C or C, B, A. In both ways, B is at the middle and the symbol is put above the vertex. Okay. By this, there are two angles. As I told you earlier, there is a acute angle and there is reflex angle. We can name these angles. When we name this acute angle, we can name this acute angle as ABC acute angle or CBA acute angle. Both are correct because ABC acute angle or CBA acute angle, because the B should be in the middle as the B is the vertex and the magnitude of the acute angle is indicated by ABC angle. Okay. When you see this angle, the blue color one, it is the obtuse reflex angle. This reflex angle also called as, it can be named as reflex angle ABC or the reflex angle CBA. That means starting from A and ends from C, ABC. That means start from A, in the middle we meet B and end from the C. But it is a reflex angle, so it should be this side. Okay, starting from A, in the middle B and end from C. The reflex angle ABC. Or we can start from C. CBA. The reflex angle CBA or reflex angle ABC. Both are same. We can name as both ways. Keep in mind ABC angle or CBA. But we have to mention it is an acute angle or reflex angle. We should clearly mention this as an acute angle and this as a reflex angle. This is acute angle ABC, or we can also call as acute angle CBA. When we name this angle, we can call it as reflex angle ABC or reflex angle CBA. There is another method to name the angles. Angle ABC also can be indicated using this symbol. This symbol also indicates the meaning of an angle. The symbol, it indicates the meaning of angle. So we can read this as angle ABC. From this symbol, it says us it is an angle. So we can call it as angle ABC. Okay, let's see some questions. What are the instances where you can observe angles which are dynamic in nature? Dynamic means, give me some examples. Dynamic, that means it changes with the time. I give you an example. Can you remember the magnitude between our hand and the minute hand of a clock? Okay, it is a dial. With the time, the magnitude between two hands of a clock are changes. What are the instances where you can observe angles which are static in nature? Static means they are stable, they do not change. Can you remember the edge of a book? The angle at the edge of the book. It does not change with time. So it is an example for a angle with a static nature. The last question, write down the arms and the vertex of each of the angles given below. What are the vertexes? In first one, vertex is C. The second one, vertex is Y. And the last one, vertex is M. The arms are the straight line segments. So, this is the end of the lesson. Hope you all get a great knowledge on angles. If there is any problem, do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.